And we should be recording. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're calling from. Welcome to the fourth session of the Digital Portfolio Management Launch and Learn. Today, we'll be focusing on data relationships, and we'll be hearing from one of our engineers, Justin Harden, who's worked on some of this today. Looking forward to your presentation. I'll let you take it away, Justin.
Alrighty, so to introduce myself, my name is Justin Harden. I'm the dev manager for Digital Portfolio Management, Service Portfolio Management, and Service Builder. I also have Aaron Guzman and Mike Hall on the call. They're two engineers on our team, and they're the ones that really know the details. And so as we go deep and if we go into Q&A, I brought some backup with me today. And obviously, you guys know Caitlin, she's on the call as well. And she's our product management leader. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started and kind of orient. And so today we're doing data relationships, and I'm going to go pretty deep on how data is wired up into DPM. And we're going to be looking at some code today. We're going to be looking at some sort of data relationships, some CSDM stuff. And so it's meant to be not sort of like high-level feature overview, but really like how things work under the covers. So hopefully that applies to you. If not, or what I'm talking about isn't germane to what you are looking to learn, we do have people monitoring chat. And so ask your questions directly in chat, and we can have sort of the conversation on multiple fronts. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, so these are my notes, and I'm going to be going over these off screen as I go through the different screens. But I wanted to kind of start with this, like the challenge. So a lot of products that ServiceNow ships are based off of, a half dozen records, like incident problem change, or there's like a project, or it's sort of like a more focused offering. And what's somewhat unique about digital portfolio management is that it's very broad. What we're aiming to do is give a higher level view of your services, offerings, business applications, application services, et cetera. And so instead of going deep and narrow, we go very broad and somewhat shallow. The last count, I think, was 281 or 283 different data elements that we actually surface in DPM. And we surface that from 71 different tables, and then we also have a ton of indicators. So there's probably over 100 different data sources if you count indicators as a table. So it's quite a lot of data. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't have all of the relationships and data sources and nuance for all 280 of these data elements in my head. And I'll go through some of the tools that we use on our team to unwind that complexity. So the next point I want to make is there's a lot of different ways to, I hate the analogy, skin the cat, or there's a lot of different ways to solve the same problem in ServiceNow. And what makes it more challenging is our recommendation for how to relate data to other data changes over time. And DPM supports multiple sort of generations of data or product. And so some of the complexity you'll see is because we're really trying to solve for a lot of different customers who wire up their data in a lot of different valid ways, who've implemented SPM and the whole sort of like data model differently at different points in time. And then that kind of goes to my third point. There are sort of layers of data. So one example is we have a lightweight integration with sprints and stories. But then if you implement our DevOps product, it's a whole nother heavyweight, not heavyweight, that sounds bad, but a whole nother more comprehensive implementation of those concepts. And those new tables or those new fields sort of replace the more basic implementation of just epics and stories. And so there's a lot of complexity in DPM. And that's the sort of like the punchline of this whole story. But what we try to do is hide that complexity mostly under the covers. So as long as you're following the CSDM, as long as you're, you have that source data, it will pretty easily show up in DPM. Okay, so I'll pause there. That's sort of the problem statement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the documentation, and then I'm going to go through 3 code samples or 3 examples actually in our product. And then after that, I'll open it up for any questions that anyone has. So pausing there for a second, any questions before we move on to go over the documentation? Okay. Awkward. I'm going to go off video and on mute for 10 seconds. I need to close the door to my room. I'm working from home and my family's waking up, and I don't want to share that with all of my friends here on the call. So give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I should have remembered to do that earlier. Okay, so the first thing, I call this the Rosetta Stone. This is our data source document. And so how you get here is you go to docs.servicenow.com, and then you search for digital portfolio management, and then you go to digital portfolio management reference. And then down here, you'll see another topic called digital portfolio management related applications and data sources. And so there's some good overview documentation here. What I often go to is this knowledge base article. And you go to the knowledge base article. Oh, I have to log in. Okay, well, I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm gonna go directly to the data sources document. This one is a slightly newer version. We update this document every, I want to say, month or 2, depending on, need and when we find things that are missing. And so to orient you to this document, the layout is by main page, and then where appropriate, the tab, and then the section, and then the visible data element. So for example, the home page. So if I go over to DPM and I go to home page, what we're going to see here, once it loads, is every possible data element on the home page is represented in this section right here. So you'll see needs attention, personal portfolios, and enterprise portfolios. So it should be needs attention, personal portfolios, enterprise portfolios. And it talks through sort of the implementation of each of these things, and so on and so forth. And so, personal portfolios is this screen right here. And then it starts to get a little bit more interesting when you get into enterprise portfolios. I'll go ahead and I'll drill down into enterprise portfolios is what we call our portfolio overview page. I'll actually go all the way down to a service. Right here, code scanning services, and I'll do view details. And so now you're getting into one of the many hearts of DPM. This is what we call the service details page. And you'll see plan, build, run info. And so to orient you to the document, I'm going to find the service details page, which is right here. And then you can see the header and the right rail, right? So these are the data elements here in the header and in the right rail. And then over here, you'll start to see the tabs, right? So these are the items on the plan, on the build, so on and so forth. Now, what our first version of this document kind of stopped right here, where you'd see source table field. And it's like, okay, this project's overdue by month, for example. If I go to, let's see, where was I? Let me link up here. I was on the build tab. Okay, so if I go to the build tab, and I have this project's overdue by month, this component visualization, how do I wire that up? Well, the first version of the document was like, well, all right, well, just have projects in PM project. But of course, it's never that simple. And so the next major revision of our document, we added, and it's relatively comprehensive, the join methods or conditions. And so, to actually show up there, this field, which is planned in date, needs to be, basically in the past year. And so that's not obvious, right? If you look here, it's like projects overdue by month. It doesn't say past projects with an end date starting 1 year older or newer. Like that would be like the full title. We obviously don't want to add that complexity or that much verbiage in the UI. And so this is the main way that you can understand what data is showing up in DPM. And as you can see in this document, there's a lot of complexity, right? So here, core company whose service offering field is the offering in question. So that one is, companies in the subscriber section of the info tab. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just kind of trying to orient you. And I don't know if we actually have any. Yeah, we don't. We have some departments in this. This is demo data, and it's a lot of times it's randomly generated. We're not sure exactly what's going to show up in here on any given instance. So I'll pause for a second. Any questions or reactions to this data sources document? Okay.
Don't be shy, guys. If you don't want to come off mute, you can always throw your comments in chat.
I guess my only question is this something you guys will be sharing with us after the call?
Yes, and it is available publicly. It is a little bit hard to find.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and log on here, and it'll take me a second. I apologize.
I think we put the link in the chat.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
because it's great having that level of detail. So I think that'll be helpful for us.
Yeah, we almost we get a good number of case tasks or a good number of customers just asking why doesn't my project show up? That's very common. And so what we've been doing is when we get those questions, the first thing we do is make sure this document is updated. And then we send the doc out, of course, after answering the specific question. And it is on the doc site. It links to this knowledge article. The knowledge article goes to this page. And then if you click on this, download the data sources Excel file, that's the file in question. And the one that I'm showing here is it's maybe a month newer. So it has 7 or 8 edits. It's pretty much the same. Cool. Okay, I see a lot of questions in chat, and can the source logic be modified? Absolutely. And I will actually share some of that in a little bit. Okay. What's the, Lou, I'm looking at your question. Is the document addressing what is in the spreadsheet you are showing?
I think Mike then put a link in there subsequently pointing to the right document.
Okay. Awesome.
The KB article has the link to the Excel spreadsheet. The doc article, I don't think does. It just has the tables.
Okay.
We got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And again, this spreadsheet is what I call it the Rosetta Stone. It's what our engineers often use when they're troubleshooting issues or whatnot. We like to actually document requirements for new fields in user stories and then translate that here. So this is a pretty direct connection to how it's wired up. So, okay. All right. Let's see, go back to my notes here. Where did it go? Okay. So the next doc, the only other doc I want to show is the CSTM reference white paper. And so there's kind of 2 things here. So, okay, this is a PDF. You can download it. I literally just search for CSTM white paper, and then this is where I download it. I'm surprised it's still in draft. I couldn't find a non-draft version, but I believe this is the latest CSTM 4.0 doc. And there's this article here, and then you can download the PDF here, which is in PDF. And one of the key, it's all good stuff. It's all kind of the latest in how we recommend you wire up data. But for us, one of the critical pages is right here. It's page 31. And it really talks about a lot of the core objects that we deal with in DPM. And so here I took a screenshot and did some annotations with a little, magenta blobs. Those are CSDM relationships that I might have missed a few. I did this just before the meeting. These are the CSDM relationships that we represent in digital portfolio management in different ways. So like a good example is if you want an application service to show up on the technical service offering, then you go into CMDB rel CI, or is it rel CMDB CI? It's the CMDB relationship many-to-many table. And you have to create the contains or contained by relationship between these two, right? And if you want to do business service offering, you do depends on or dependent on, right? So, and if you set those relationships up, then when you're in DPM, let's see here. If I can go, it's probably gonna run, sorry. And I didn't actually prepare something on this one in particular, so this may not be a good example. Anyhow, it should show up there in user services. This is one I'm using a lot here, knowledge bases. Let's see if this one has good demo data here. And so again, if you use these CMDB CSDM, that was a lot of acronyms, relationships, then stuff will start to hydrate or show up correctly in digital portfolio management. Let's give it a second to load, and if I can show you, if not, I'll move on, and we'll get into the code. There's application service dependencies. We just need to give it a few seconds to load here. Ah, darn it. Okay, so I don't have any application services wired up. We did a lot of demo data work for knowledge, and we had some pretty clean examples. I kind of wish I had access to that right now. Anyhow, if I were to have an application service and using the CMDB rel CI data, and this is on a business service offering, right? And so over here, I go to business service offering, and there's this relationship depends on application service. If I were to go in and create that relationship between this business service offering and this application service, it'll show up here. And that's kind of how a lot of things are wired up, are through the CSDM reference. Okay, so that's the documentation. Any other questions around documentation before I go to kind of how things are wired up? Okay. So we're going to start over here, and this is going to be the simple reference. So this is the basically what I call a simple table reference, or a UI builder component table reference. And what I'm going to show you is I'm on a business service and I'm on the build tab. And I'm going to show you how we wire up this donut right here. So this active projects by current status, it shows the number of projects and the red, yellow, green status of each project associated with this knowledge-based business service. And so what we do is these are all built using the Next experience. We call that UI builder internally. If you find a data element, or this kind of goes to answer the question, how could I change these things? And you want to change how a reference works, UI builder is probably the beginning of what it takes to do that. And so here it's loading up UI builder. Okay, come on, UI builder. All right. So in UI Builder, there should be an experience called Digital Portfolio Management. I'll go ahead and open that one. I have to be patient. I always want these things to load faster when I'm demoing to groups of people here. Okay. These are all of our pages. And then, and this is a little bit challenging, but you basically need to know that we're going after the service details page. And in this case, we're going to look at service details default. And so this is getting into the, it's not really what you see is what you get, but it's getting into the almost WYSIWYG editor here. And I'll share some of the complexity and some of the challenges that we face with DPM. Okay. So this is the tool that a lot of our engineers use to build the product. And right off the bat, you'll notice something a little bit weird. You know, if I actually look at the page, you know, there's a lot going on here, right? There's a header. I'm sorry, I'm on a business service offering. Let me go to service. Okay. There's a header, there's a right rail, there's a bunch of tabs, and each of the tabs, there's tons of stuff. In UI Builder, I actually don't necessarily see all of that. And the reason, the summary reason is we have a lot of conditionals in here where if you're missing data or you don't have a plugin installed or you know, you have a certain property set, we don't want to show the data until the page is loaded and the data is loaded, right? We hide it. And so you'll notice like when you refresh a DPM page, you're not going to see a bunch of like empty components with old data. It's going to kind of build, you know, progressively, and it's going to only show you the data once it gets the new values. And so because of that, you see a lot of kind of what I'll call like empty state in UI Builder. And so, and it's something we're working with the platform team on and how we can kind of force everything to show in UI Builder, even though the visibility rules and stuff are set to invisible. But because of that, what we do is we really rely on this tree view over here. And so what I want to show you is, again, it's on the build tab. And so, you know, how our pages are built is there's this screen out here, and then there's these tabs inside. And so I'll click here and it shows me a tab set, okay? And inside a tab set are my plan, build, run, and info. And I think I said that we were going to look at the build tab. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the build tab, and then I'm going to open in UI Builder. And it's going to open a tab or a sub page. Okay. Now, once we get here, I'm going to go to body, main, container 3, main, container 5. Let's see, where's container 5, and then CR by state. Okay. So this right here, even though you can't see here for all the reasons I said, and just if you're curious and you want to learn more, see this hide component thing right here. This is what we call the visibility rules. And this thing right here says, is par filter set? So we don't want to show this data until we actually know what object we're representing. So like, we're only going to show changes by state once the actual, in this case, service is actually fed into the screen. If we don't do that, then what happens is as you navigate around, this data could be cached from like the last business service you're looking at. So we only want to show fresh data. We only show data that's actually relevant to this knowledge-based business service, not the last one you saw. And so those are some of the things we had to do in UI Builder to make that happen. All right, but now this is actually the simplest use case. So you'll notice that this is just a component, right? This is just it's called a donut visualization. You can find it over here in Component Builder. I'll go do that really quick. So if I do donut, oh, is it visualization? It's data visualization. And then I would drag and drop this in here, and then I would set the type to donut. Data visualization type is donut. Okay. Once you drag that object in there, you'll get this component configuration screen on the right. And this one's pretty straightforward in that all we have to do here is set the data source to a table. And then we set this data source to the change request table. And then we set the metric to a count of change requests, and we group by state. And that's it. We're done. Like, that is how we get data for that donut. And it's the simplest use case in DPM. One other thing that I'll notice, and I think we have other sessions on this in the future, is that you'll notice that this is all read-only, right? You'll see this read-only, the variant has a protection policy. The reason we do that is we want to kind of do two things. We want to allow for customization, but we don't want to block your upgrade path. And so if in our very first versions of DPM, these were actually read-writable by our customers. And what would happen is a customer would come in here and they would make an edit to this page. Now, the next time they upgrade to a newer version of DPM, even a patch release, this change is captured in a table called the customer updates table. And anytime you have a record that's modified by a configuration record that's modified by the customer, we don't include it in an upgrade. And so the bug fixes or the changes we make to this page, you won't have, and then something will break and you'll create a case and we'll have a case task. And the first thing we do is we go in there and we see if there's a customization and see if we need to repair that. So, and I won't go into too much detail, but what you do if you want to change this, if you wanted to change this from a donut to a pie chart or a bar graph or whatever, or even change the table source, is you would clone this entire page. And again, we'll go into that in more detail later. So that is a quick dive into the easiest way that data is wired up in DPM. And I'll pause there for a second. Any questions, comments?
That was pretty deep.
Lou, you were one of our power users. And so if you think that's deep, then I'm kind of worried I'm going too detailed here and it's only going to get harder.
Yeah, you have to already have your skill set honed a little bit with UI Builder, right? And then you can follow along. And you were going a little fast, so if you weren't watching carefully and you missed kind of the next step, then it's like, okay, where am I now? Where did he go?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the summary is in UI Builder, the simplest use case is you find a component over here, like a visualization. You can literally drag and drop, and I can't because I'm in read-only mode, but you drag and drop the component into UI Builder. When you click on that component, you get this configuration thing on the right. And all you have to do is you wire it up to a table, and then you can configure the metric, count, average, whatever, and the group by, and then bam, you have your data here on the dashboard.
That's simple.
Yeah, that's the summary, skipping over a lot of the details.
Justin, we have a couple questions in the chat. You might want to address one from Robert. It's, can you show an example of what a dynamic CI group looks like when related to technical service in DPM?
I can't off the top of my head. Mike or Aaron, can you take that?
And then we have another question from Deb. I missed what to do when the page is read only and we need to change.
Okay.
So that first question, dynamic CI group in regards to a technical service. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Are we talking like, let me see if we can see the question. If there's anywhere into there. Okay. Yeah, that's such your best bet is just pull up the CSDM model.
Yeah, this is Helene Raver. We aren't currently using dynamic CI groups. I just was curious if when in DPM, does it present the same as an application service? Like how do people see that relationship in the module?
Yes, it's the same. Dynamic CI group is an application service. It's, if not in this diagram, but I think on the same CSDM, reference on docs, there's another diagram that shows the, what is it, the CMDB something auto application auto table, which is really a view that includes 3 other tables, including the CMDB CI dynamic service, where those are. So it just depends on how you're going to do discovery. If you're doing tagging, or if you're doing service mapping, or you're doing like we're doing, that's all we use is dynamic CI groups. And then there's an embedded query, a CMDB query, and manual, where you associate the infrastructure to the dynamic CI group.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Well, I'm going to take that as a note too. And, you know, if it's something that a lot of our customers are doing, I think we need to do better documentation and you know, be more ready to demo that. So that's a good, good prompt. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's see if I can go into how to clone really quick. Well, there's nothing really quick, but that might be overselling it a little bit. All right, I think let's go back out. And this is slightly newer, and so I'm gonna have to go back one more. There we go. Okay. And then let's see here, product details, service details defaults. Okay, so here I am back out of the UIB page, and I clicked on the screen, and there's this create variant or duplicate variant. And so I'm gonna duplicate. And again, we have a whole session. I think we have a whole session on this later. I should double check, but. And now what's happening is it's actually creating essentially a copy of that page. And I'm going to go ahead and create it. It'll take a moment here. I think Mike is going to present the deep dive on this later, so I'm stealing a little bit of his content here.
And the session on duplicating and editing pages is going to be July 26th, by the way.
Okay. We'll give this a few more seconds. If it doesn't finish, I might continue on the data one and defer this, but let's see here. These are relatively expensive operations because there's a lot of records under the covers that it's duplicating right now. It's like a toaster. If I look away, it'll finish, I know. All right, let's come back to, actually, I can't come back to that because I'm in UI Builder. You just have to write it out.
A feature request for waiting music might be something well received.
Some Jeopardy music.
Yeah.
The UI Builder tools aren't necessarily blazingly fast, but they're not usually this slow. I'm tempted to try again here, but okay, I'm about to give up. All right, I gave up. So normally what you would do is you would go in there and then you would set the view to something that's lower than 100 on the order. I'm sorry, the order to something that's less than 100. And then when you go in and edit that screen, it'll be a writable. And so instead of the read-only view that we were looking at, you could actually go in and make changes, and then you save it. And then when you open DPM, it should just show up. Let's see if I can get back into UIB here. All right. While that's loading, I'm going to try to multitask our server here, and I'm going to try to open up the next part of the Launch and Learn, which is around data brokers and UIB data sources. Oh boy. Come on. Let me figure out how I can. Okay, I'm going to try a new browser session here. Mike and Aaron, can you go check like one of the other DPM review twos and see if it's coming up, just in case this instance is wedged?
Yeah, check in.
Okay. See, as soon as I asked for that, it started to render. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to show next is I'm going to show you something that you would think would be very simple. And it's the owned by field on that same service details page. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this is wired up right here. We see owned by Jose Hamilton. And you might think that that's just a simple, stacked label component that I drag from UIB and I place on the page. And I point at the owner field and boom, we're done. But that is not, in fact, how it works in DPM. And so I'm going to let this finish rendering. The demo gremlins are making themselves seen today with my instance here. Come on.
Yeah, it looks like the DPM review 2 is running a little bit better. They're all kind of running slow right now for some reason, the instances, but the yeah, my guess is on review 3, it's probably still trying to duplicate everything in the background on it. And the instance itself was running pretty slow. But yeah, review 2, yeah, actually it's running much better.
Okay, let me see if I can do this one up faster here. Okay, so this is a slightly different version of the app, but it should be workable here. And so I'm going to go into, let's see, link, copy link. Have to do some on the fly editing here. This should work. Okay. We go all UI builder. You're going to open up digital portfolio management. Okay, and this is a slightly different family version here, but I'm going to go to service details. So we're on the same page. I think this is a Tokyo instance, not a Utah instance. And then I'm going to go to service details defaults. Okay. And again, I just want to show this owned by field here. And so when I click owned by, you'll see it highlights the object over here on the left, and it goes to service label 1. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. So I'm going to click on the items box, and don't worry so much about the code. And you don't necessarily have to like remember this because this gets pretty complex. But I want to kind of show the bigger picture. I just want to do it in detail. And so what's happening here is we're hitting what's called a data broker. And so whenever you open up something in UI Builder and you hit the items tab and you see this API.data right here, that's a signal that you're actually going against a data source. And it's called get personal portfolio item metadata. Get personal portfolio item metadata. And so what we do is we go down here to data sources, and we'll see get personal portfolio item metadata. This is ultimately what's called and you can see the get ID, the ID is that exact thing that we saw in the item thing over there. So when we saw API.data.get personal portfolio item metadata, it found the data resource with this ID, and this thing is a reference to a function, and I'll show you that in a second. And then this is a sample response. So we've created an API under the covers that returns metadata. And the reason it's not against a simple table is because this code is reused across a bunch of different object types. It's used across technical services, business services, service offerings, applications services, I believe. And the underlying tables might have slightly different column names for owned by, or there's some variation there, but we wanted to create sort of a standard way to get this header data. And so we've created some function calls that gets the metadata for these objects and populates the headers. And this right here is a sample response. Okay. Now to drill down, and again, don't worry about remembering this, but I'm kind of taking you on the journey here. Is what this does is it calls a function in DPM utils called get personal portfolio item metadata. And let's see what that does. Let me see if I can open definition. And this is an important thing. So this DPM utils is what we call an extension point. And so this is an important concept if you want to customize your behavior or how your data lookups work in DPM. The file that I'm going to go to in a second is what we call the out of the box or default implementation of all this behavior. But you can simply redefine any function that we define in here and create your own custom version of it. And this should be writable by customers. And so the reason we do it this way is that as a customer, if you want to change what metadata you get, like you don't want to show owned by, you want to show managed by in that header, you could overwrite the function I'm about to show you and actually return different data. Okay, so that, and you would do that right here. So now going into, oops.
Question. Is that also governing the widgets? So for example, on the run tab, the number of incidents, problems changes. Is that what you're using to, because we can set the parameter for the duration, right, from this date to this date, but we can, or I don't know, unless it's in an indicator, what those are configured to show or not show. Meaning it's not like it's on a report where you can hover over it, drill into it, and see what the condition is, right? You don't expose that, at least not in DPM. Maybe you have to go into UI Builder, or maybe, like I said, in an indicator. So you see open incidents,
Yes.
or if you even drill in, you're on the business service to the actual offering, or actually know where you go to the little context menu on the left-hand side, the hamburger thing, and then look at this from a business application perspective. Click on list so you can see all yours, and then all business apps, and then click on a business app, and then go to the run tab of that.
Yeah, so those are all good questions.
Those three, yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm realizing, man, time flies when you're having fun. And we don't have that much time. So the summary is there's 3 different ways that you wire up data, and this is another example of where things are changing. So right now, you know, these I believe are, this is like custom and, you know, custom single score implementation based off of a script. So the way I'm showing you now would work. You would go into this function, this file with which has the data broker functions in it, and you could change it there. Now in an upcoming release, we're actually changing this this part right here to be driven by PAR indicators. And so that's the third data source that I don't know if I'll have time to show. Maybe that warrants its own working session, or maybe it's too detailed for this forum. But and so remember, there's 3 ways. The first way is a component config, which I showed you with the donut. The second way is this function implementation, data broker implementation, which you would do in this case, I believe, for business applications. And then the third way is PAR. PAR is, I think, was it performance analytics and reporting, and it has indicators, and there's a whole section of content on how you would change an indicator. So I know that wasn't a super clear answer, Lou, but hopefully
That was good. That was good. I know, appreciate it. Because the point I was making is you don't know if that's pulling up incidents that are currently active. Like, you have to go dig through this code to see what it's actually rendering, is my point.
Yes. And okay.
And I believe that would be defined in that data sources doc, right, Justin?
Yeah, well, so that's we don't want people to have to do what I'm doing right now, which is go through and dig through the SNC utils function. We want people to be able to go to the data sources doc, you know, which is, again, this one right here. Sorry, I had to close my browser, so I lost my credentials. Blah. Good old multi-factor auth.
Yeah, that was a really helpful explanation. Appreciate it.
So anyhow, so the first step whenever you want to know how something is wired up is come here. If it doesn't answer your question and you have the appetite, then you can kind of do what I'm showing the group today, which is, you know, go dig into the code. And then the third thing is just open a case and we'll help, because I know this stuff is not necessarily simple, to say the least. Okay, so within this, let's see, DPM utils SC, there should be a Git. Let's see. Where is it? I'm sorry, is this metadata? Let's see here. Okay, so let's see here, Git. Portfolio item. Oh. Okay, I'm sorry, I was using the underscores when I didn't need it. So, okay. So, long story short is we've implemented a function here called, where is it? Get personal portfolio item metadata. And then that calls get personal portfolio item metadata wrapper, and then that calls this function right here. Let's see. There we go. And so this is where we're actually grabbing the content for that simple field. So, remember, all we're doing is we're getting this owned by Jose Hamilton, but down under the covers, we're actually checking to see, if this is an offering or service, then I'm going to basically construct this response. And you can actually see right here, I'm going to get the display value and then the actual value of the owner field and return that in owned by. And so there's a surprising amount of complexity for what is a simple stacked label. And the reason is code reuse. We want to allow for customization without necessarily cloning UIB pages. This also handles, in some cases, it handles internationalization, so translation, all that kind of stuff. And it's how a lot of stuff is wired up. So wow, so that was, I was convinced that I would get through all three of my data sources in half an hour and have plenty of time. And we're at 54 minutes after, and I've only gotten through 2. But again, let me summarize, and then we'll do the questions for the last 6 minutes. There are 3 ways to get data. One is just looking at a component table reference. The next way is using data sources or data brokers, which ultimately lead to this function, this JavaScript file of functions. And then the third way is par data. And that includes indicators and metrics. And there's a lot of setup and a lot of complexity there, but it's super powerful. Okay, so I'll pause there. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, you're sharing that document with us, or
Which document?
when you just showed that broke down your notes, I guess.
Oh, I certainly can. It's not meant for public consumption, but I can clean it up and share it out if that's something that's interesting to you guys.
I'll leave that up to
that'd be
you.
awesome.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. And also, I think this is one of the deepest, technical launch and learns that we've done. So any feedback you have for the group on, do you want to see more of this, or do you want to keep it higher level? That's super valuable to us. Again, our whole reason to be here is to help you and to serve you. And so let us know if this is too much, not enough, or what's helpful. So, all right, anything else? All right, I'll hand it back to you, Christopher.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. As you stated, we did throw a lot at you all today. So if you have any questions or comments post-call, please feel free to fill out the form that I sent in the chat a couple minutes ago. We do look at your responses, believe it or not. We'll be looking at them all day today and probably some of tomorrow before we send out the recap email. But with that, I'll say thank you all for joining today. Look forward to seeing you all in a couple weeks. I'll stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.